As we've seen in the world of running, people complete some epic challenges to raise money for amazing causes. With the growth of HYROX, it was only going to be a matter of time before we started seeing massive challenges in this world of hybrid fitness. On this show and other shows, we've already seen some brilliant challenges come through. Today, we are going to cover a challenge that cannot be missed. Hello and welcome to On the Rocks podcast with me, Coach Marshy. I hope you are all very well and all enjoying your training in this early part of the year. So we are about to discuss an epic challenge, another epic challenge. It's one that I feel can't be missed and should be covered. So we are going to go straight into welcoming today's guest into the show. Hello and welcome, Paul. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, no, thanks for coming on. We really appreciate the time. So, to be honest, Paul, let's just tell them straight away what the challenge is. So, don't give me any detail, but just in a very brief overview, what is it that you're currently doing as a challenge?
100 days of HYROX. So, a HYROX a day for 100 consecutive days, finishing on the 12th of April.
Yeah, so I mean, as I say there at the beginning, what an epic challenge. I think for anyone who's done a HYROX or is training in this world of hybrid fitness, they will straight away hear those words of 100 days of HYROX and think, how is this guy even going to do it? And we're going to try and unpack that a little bit for everyone. And you know, from a coaching perspective for me, and then I'd imagine, you know, consumers like one of our members, Tatey, would be very interested in how you are going to execute this and how it works on a kind of logistical scale. We're going to find that out. But I've got one question to start you off. Fat to fit in your 40s. That's probably something that didn't just happen. So let's kind of cover that, because that might set us up ready.
Yeah, that's kind of what was the start of this journey. I 47 years old, was overweight, hadn't been in a gym probably my entire life, certainly hadn't done any real activity since school, which was many years before, and just decided, you know what, I should probably do something about this, and had no idea where to start. So I literally found a local gym and a local personal trainer and just kind of went there and went, yeah, I need to do something. I sat down there at the time, my first meeting, and said, I've got no interest in joining the gym and doing all this kind of stuff, but just, you know, I'll come in and you kind of get me fit. And, you know, and he said, well, what are your aims? I said, no idea. I didn't want to lose a certain amount. I just knew I needed to kind of make a change. And that was the start of the journey. That was in July 2023. And it's kind of been nonstop since then. I did 2 lots of personal training a week for just over a year, which kind of got me very strong and you know, lost 4.5 stone doing that and felt good. And it was my personal trainer, Ben, who at one of our sessions at 5 a.m. mentioned this word HYROX, of something I'd never heard before. And yeah, kind of almost this time last year, the tickets came, well, they're talking about tickets and stuff like that, and we decided we were going to go for one. And yeah, it was at that stage, it was like, yeah, it was a long way off, and it was this thing that didn't sound too bad on paper, and yeah, and so the journey started. But again, this time last year, as part of that journey, I hadn't run since school. I've been doing a lot of work in the gym, lots of strength work and flexibility and functional fitness, but hadn't really done a lot of kind of cardio. So that was the second wave of shock of March last year, is when I first started running, which I hated every second of it, but realized that, okay, if I'm going to do a HYROX, this is kind of a big thing. So yeah, it's just kind of gone on from there. And that idea of this line that I've used, the fat to fit in your 40s, is because I think it's one of these things that I'm never going to be the strongest, fastest or anything like that. But it was just dogged determination. It was just turning up day after day and jumping on the body tracks machine and all these kind of things, and nothing changed overnight. It took 6 months before my metabolic age, which when I first got on the machine said I was 62, which is depressing when you're 47. For any time for that to move. So yeah, it's just been a real kind of, not even roller coaster. It's just been a slow, steady kind of progress, and enjoyed every second. So.
Yeah, and you sort of mentioned 4 stone there. Would you say, what was the initial impact on you when you realize you're losing that amount of weight and you've gone through that process, like you said, not overnight, but that consistency of doing it and then getting those results? Was there a huge impact for your life?
100%, and I think it's a huge impact, certainly when you look back. And it's a lot of little impacts along the way. One of the ones I joked about a lot is I discovered Vinted during this time, because I basically had to sell my entire wardrobe of clothes because nothing fitted me. And so I invested in Vinted from that point of view. But it was lots of the little things. People in the gym, after a few months started coming up, and they were noticing it. Friends and family were noticing it. I was. There was never, I guess in the early days, I was like, oh, is there going to be a day when I wake up and I magically feel better? But of course, it sneaks up on you day by day. And then you notice that, oh, yeah, I can run up the stairs and I'm not panting and stopping halfway and all these other things. And then the more kind of people notice it, and it's a bit of a standing joke now with some friends, when every so often, how your phone throws a photo up from 2 years ago or something like that, and one of those comes up, and it's because when I show people the before and after, the response is normally, who is that? Which was amusing. And I went to a big event, must have been about this time last year, and there were a load of people that I hadn't seen for a while, and I was having a conversation with 2 people for a good minute before they realized who I was.
Really?
Yeah. People I knew quite well. So yeah, it really was a kind of a profound change, and I found it really interesting, the journey and understanding, because I'd never really looked into nutrition or anything like that, and realizing how important going in, approaching 50 as I am, I've got enough time to put things right now.
Yeah, no, that sounds, I mean, all of those things, I think, for anyone who's done a sort of lifestyle change, they'll be able to hear you and hear what you're saying there. And it's kind of if and you'll get those feelings, and those moments of celebration will come to you. And I think one interesting thing to pick up just before we dive into the specifics is, you mentioned 5 a.m. training session. Is that because that's where it fits in your day? It fits with a trainer? It's how you wanted to do it?
It was, I say, I had no idea going in. It was literally the slot that Ben had free. And I would have said, and everyone would know me, I've always been the proverbial night owl, kind of. So, because lots of people, oh, did you always used to get up early? I said, yes, when I had a paper round before school, but since then, no. So that was kind of part of that kind of journey. And I think that routine, because it was that classic thing of, I wanted a different outcome. So I had to do things differently. So, slotting that into the morning, and then that just then became when I trained, and I just kind of got used to it. And it's that classic thing when a lot of people go, oh, how do you find the time to train? It's like, I get up at 4:30 in the morning. It's like, oh, I couldn't do that. Well, no, I couldn't do that before I did it. But, that's where you find the extra time. It's not just kind of sitting around there. So, yeah, that it was initially just kind of fitting in, but it's just become, part of it. And there's a stolen line. I can't remember who I should attribute it to someone, but it's the win the morning, win the day. I think it might be Tim Ferriss. But it often feels like that, because you come back from the gym and, shower, grab a protein shake, and it's still kind of 7:30 in the morning, and you feel like, oh, I can do anything now,
Yeah, no, I mean, echo those words. I think a lot of people listening that do that will again, it's an if you do it, you realize, and before that, you didn't know you could do it. Yeah, and that's really interesting, because that's a big lifestyle shift as well. And, in everyday life, and it is busy, are you a busy guy? Are you off? You working? What are you doing?
Yeah, I mean, fortunately, I work. Well, fortunately and unfortunately, I work for myself. My boss is terrible. But yeah, so I'm a business coach, and do consultancy work and things like that. So yeah, I don't have to do a long commute or anything like that. Fortunately, I just have to walk down to the end of my garden, so I can manage that even after a hard leg day. So yeah, so that's kind of get back on with the with the day, the day job kind of thing. But it's been interesting, certainly on the business coaching side that I do, how much the fitness, nutrition, and that kind of stuff has kind of seeped across, because I work with a lot of people that run their own businesses. And one of the lines I always say is that if you run your own business, you are the engine of your business. And if you put rubbish into the engine and treat it poorly, then your business is going to suffer. So it's been interesting how much that's, affected my, what I do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, and without going off on a tangent too much, the correlation in that, do you think it's becoming more important to people now as business execs, business owners, regardless of the industry? Do you think the whole kind of lifestyle that goes with it is becoming more important?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, certainly for very much on the self-employed and partnerships and really kind of small, cottage businesses, that it is a lifestyle business, and that can be a very big lifestyle business. But I think it's that it's an acknowledgement, I think, of there is no such real thing as work-life balance. It's just all life. And it's what you kind of do with it. But yeah, if it's very easy to, and that's one of my realizations, it's very easy to mistreat your body and put rubbish in, and the world is set up to make that really, really easy. And before you know it, you've got you've built up over years and decades all those bad habits, and your body's kind of paying for it. So I think it's that acknowledgement that actually, if I want to have more free time, if I want to get more out of my business and things like that, they're not separate things. It's all part of you as the person.
Yeah, and that takes us nicely on to HYROX and the hybrid world, and I guess elite sports. The nice thing about HYROX, we'll find out in a minute about your kind of interest at the elite level, but whether you are just a beginner doing your first HYROX and it's going to take you 2.5 hours, or whether you're Ronkovic or Meg or anyone, it doesn't really matter who you are. It's requiring a certain amount of effort to get to the end, that relative, regardless of time, is going to be hard. And I think the first thing I want to say is PT Ben mentions this word HYROX then, and you initially go and go and have a little read. What do you do?
Absolutely. Google it, and from that kind of, I think I probably focused on the stations first. I'd done the ski, I'd done the row, we'd done farmers, we've got a sled and a track. So kind of like all of that felt, pretty straightforward. And then, I think it's one of the great ways of hiding a kilometer run is by calling it 1,000 meters. For some reason, that sounds less. So it's, I can do that. And it was a bit of a challenge, and it was part of this. And he'd mentioned things like Tough Mudders and other things like that. But they're too much outdoors and mud, And so HYROX just kind of like, indoors. Yeah, there's kind of, fitness that sounds like it could be fun. And again, it was when he first mentioned it, it was a long way off and a perhaps, but it just kind of, started snowballing from there.
So fast forward to your first HYROX. So that was, you said, Birmingham.
Yes, Birmingham, which ended up being my first 2 HYROX. Because we got tickets initially for the Sunday, and then they opened up the Friday, and we got some more tickets, and then there was lots of toing and froing. So we ended up doing a double on the Friday and a double on the Sunday, with a park run in the middle, because, why not? So that was my first one. And that's when I started kind of sharing my journey. I did 100 days to HYROX of the 100 days leading up to the HYROX, just to kind of, because at that point, the people that I had spoken to and bored them with my kind of story and my journey, but wanted to share that and wanted to hopefully inspire other people to go, doesn't matter where you are right now. And it's not going to change in a week or in a month, but you can do amazing things if you just be consistent and stick to it. So the first HYROX was in Birmingham, and it was very interesting. A lot of the people that I was with, and a big group of us went from my local gym, and we got an Airbnb. So it was a great kind of atmosphere, because that we were there was 6 pairs doing it. But I think I was the only person out of all of them that hadn't previously, I did some marathons a few years ago, did this and this, and everyone else had done it. And I'm like going, Yeah, school sports day. That was the
Yeah.
last time we did anything like this. So yeah, the first
So
one.
it was your first start line in adult life.
100%, yeah, and I think it was when I look back. I was disappointed when I got across the line because I wanted to go faster because we'd gone faster in Sims. But I think at the end of the day, it was a bit of adrenaline and excitement that kind of took over, because there'd been such a build up, and I'd built it up to this point that all of a sudden the race was here, and we were gone, and of course it was an extra early start and different routine and everything else. So yeah, I think I just kind of got a bit of first HYROX nerves almost.
Yeah, so give us the perspective on that, because you first of all, it's your first start line, but walking into a HYROX arena for the first time, I know how that feels. You now know how that feels. When
Yeah.
you walked in and didn't know how it felt, what was the reaction?
Well, the interesting thing is I'd actually done wall balls judging in the May in London. So I'd gone up there because I wanted to get a taste for it, and obviously 8 hours counting wall balls gives you quite an experience. So I knew what the overall thing was going to be like, and then getting the number on the arm, and getting in the warm up zone, and just seeing all the the shirtless pros running around, and you're kind of like, am I in the right place? So yeah, and it was just that nervous kind of build up of have I got my nutrition right? Have I, all these kind of things. And then it was the start line. My partner at the start line, literally we were about 6 people ahead of us before we went into the start line tent, as it were, and he said, oh, I've forgotten something, and he legged it off, and I'm standing there watching the counter, and it's like 60 seconds and I've got no partner, and going, this is not what I thought my first HYROX was going to be. So eventually he kind of made it back, and it was just that the noise and you kind of packed in there in the start line, and of course then joining everyone else running around, and because there'd been a group of us gone up, there was loads of people around, lots of faces that you knew going around kind of cheering you on. It was just kind of settling into it. We'd done lots of sims and things like that, but of course there's nothing like doing it for real, so
yeah, no, 100%. And that experience in May and being a judge, would you recommend that did it help the situation?
100, yeah, I mean, I knew what the arena was going to be like, and certainly the sound of the of where the wall balls are, there for 8 hours. I'm surprised I can still hear anything. But yes, it gave me a kind of sense of it, and what I really liked about it then, and having done that and seen the pros come through, the women, men, doubles, relays, and everything else, is just one of the things that I really like about HYROX is that, and you touched on it. Everyone can do a HYROX. There's nothing technically kind of difficult in there. It's not like CrossFit or something like that. You're going to be slower or faster, and everyone's running to their own race, and that's what I kind of really like. And there's a real kind of camaraderie in that you want them to get those wall balls and not do the no reps, because you want them to get across the finish line, and everyone that crosses that finish line and getting the badge, you've finished, you've all done that, you've all achieved that, and there's a real kind of community feel, which I liked. So
yeah, no, absolutely, 100%. As a participant, completely agree with that, and I think it's an interesting one for me when people are the new person in a bigger group as well. And you did say that was your situation. Did you get looked after? Or was it just you were like the apprentice of the hour?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were all new to HYROX. I think probably the second oldest in the group, but it was more the fact that they'd all done lots of other events in as you put it, kind of in their adult life, and I was just the one that school sports day was it. So, but I'd kind of. I was one of the people that had been kind of driving it, and annoyingly optimistic, as I often get called, was the one that was always there early in the training, and I ran a few of the training sessions just with cobbled together routines I'd found off the internet and things like that. So I was kind of before I called myself hooked on HYROX. I was kind of the HYROX guy, and they were always kind of going, Paul, are you in training this weekend, and things like that. So yeah, it was a great kind of feel on that sense. I wasn't kind of the new kid on the block, but yeah, it was when we were kind of sitting there that on the Thursday evening, and people were just recounting, oh yeah, I remember when I did my second marathon, and I'm like, I did 1,500 meters at school and shot put, but I don't think that's the same.
Yeah, no, brilliant. That's a brilliant kind of story to that point. And I think, you know, from a kind of outsider's perspective, bit of feedback early on in this first year of the show is that we're getting people that are about to do a HYROX, and I think what you've just said is really handy for people to use as an anecdotal story out there, that, you know, you're not alone, you're not the only person that would have been doing this for the first time, and I'd imagine that will be hanging around for a long time to come. So yeah, no, it's cool. And then Hooked on HYROX, Instagram name, Hooked on HYROX, and you know, you finish Birmingham and you've come up with this, well, in my words, an epic challenge. So it's hard to know where to start with it, but let's just do that question. Why? What is the point? Why are you doing this?
When I was doing the 100 days to HYROX, and I was getting messages beforehand and messages on the day of people that have been kind of following me. There were even people up at Birmingham who were there and had accidentally got a video of me and things like that. And it was just a real nice feeling that people go, oh, I've started working out and things like that. And it was kind of going through that, I thought, I don't really want this to end, you know, but I can't just, you know, I've reached Birmingham. I can't just reset the clock and carry on, you know, kind of going. And it was, and I should find the guy's name and probably message him, because I just happened to catch a story, I don't know where it was now, of a guy who had just completed 1,000 Murphs. And I went, that's ridiculous. But obviously something about that stuck in my head. And because I was just in the midst of doing the 100 days to HYROX, I thought, well, I wonder if I did 100 days of HYROX. And that was really the seed. And then it was just because I knew I had Birmingham, and then I had London on the 1st of December. Which I did dressed as a snowman, which is brilliant. But so I knew I didn't want to start it in that, and thought, well, start of the year, you know, lots of people have New Year's resolutions and try and make a change. I'm just going to, you know, start it on the 3rd of January and just, go for 100 in a row.
Yeah, no, and for anyone who doesn't know what Murph is, it's a CrossFit workout, one of the Legend Heroes workouts, and it's a grueling task, and I can imagine as a point of inspiration, it sets the mind going, and here we are. So 100 days to changes to 100 days of HYROX. And for me, there's potentially some questions around that about logistics. Like, there could be some barriers to this. You know, people might even be thinking about what you're doing and saying, well, how's he doing it? Because if he goes to a gym, how's he managing to fit that in? Is there a way to capacity? You know, how does it even work? So first of all, set us the scene. This gym that you are part of, what type of gym is it?
So yeah, it's called Dream Fitness in Bognor Regis. It's I think they've got about 3 gyms, but it's essentially edge of town industrial kind of unit, big mezzanine floor. You got all the cardio on the 2 flights of stairs onto the mezzanine, showers and stuff like that, and then you've got a big kind of functional area down the bottom, and then underneath the mezzanine you've got all your free weights and your weight machines and the skis and the rows. So and that was where I'd been training, where we'd done all our training leading up to the HYROX. And because we'd done everything in there, we even had one of our HYROX gang run a company that fabricated metal. So he made us a HYROX size sled, so that we had the proper one. And so that, we had all the gear, and it was kind of like, well, yeah, it's just doing that 100 times, you know. And you know, obviously the only thing we're limited in, both with weather and stuff, is not being able to do outdoor runs. So we are treadmill running it, which is upstairs. So that's one of the things that catches people out that come and do it with me, because you do your kilometre run, then you have to run downstairs, do your station, and then you have to run back upstairs again to the treadmill. So yeah, it's kind of been kind of set up like that. So I go in the morning, get everything kind of set up and ready. We've obviously got the sled, we've got the track, and I've only had one so far where I've run down, gone to go on the ski, and they've both been used, and I'm like, oh, okay. So 20 seconds later, I managed to get on the ski. So
yeah, so yeah, I've got a couple of questions as a gym, like from a gym owner's point of view, but also firstly, the rock zone, your rock zone is up and down a flight of stairs.
Yeah, I mean, when we were doing the sims initially, we were looking and we did a lot of like really trying to get all the splits down in terms of, okay, measure the run exactly, measure exactly from when we start pushing the sled to when we finish. And then, measure the time in between, just kind of using laps on our watches and things like that. And we realized that the transition time between the rock zone time isn't that dissimilar in time wise from the actual rock zone. Before we did Birmingham, I got the Amazfit watch, and of course they have the HYROX workout on there. So I just use that now. So all the runs are spot on, because I start that when we start running and I stop it when we're running. The time that I put out there that everyone gets on the station is then the time to jump off the machine, run down the stairs, do the station, run back up the stairs. So or as in the case of some of them, walk back up the stairs, depending how we're feeling. So that is the rock zone. So it's not covering as much distance, and that was one of the big changes from doing the simulations to certainly like the sleds. It just felt you were running an extra half a kilometer just to get to the end of the sleds and back onto the track. So there's not quite as much from that point of view, but it's as close as we can to get it,
And then from a kind of perspective of what you just said, the ski erg, you've had to wait a little bit. That's cool. Is that just like an accept? You're just happy. You're going for this challenge. You're trying to finish, and you'll finish it if you can. And if it takes 20 seconds or a minute to wait for a bit of kit, you'll do that.
Yeah, I mean that's been the only one so far. Obviously, 15 days in. I thought I could pause it, but all the time I'm not on the ski, I'm resting, I'm recovering. So technically, I'm going to ski faster when I get on there anyway. So I thought, it's all going to kind of even itself out. And I did just today actually. We were just coming into the last couple of runs, and we ran back up and. When we was just about to start the machine, and there was 3 machines, and she was going on to the middle one. I said, we couldn't just jump on those 2, could we? And she was like, oh, I don't know how to use this one. So we're starting our run, and I'm trying to give her conversions from miles to kilometers, because the machine she was on was in miles per hour rather than kilometers. It's part and parcel. I'm not going out to break records with everyone. There's people that are coming along and do it that are first timers and things like that. So and we go to their pace. They're not coming along and keeping up with me. It's kind of like, no, I'm going to get you. We're going to both get through a HYROX. It's a team event.
Yeah. So you kind of just, I'm interested. Maybe others will be. I don't know, but the gym sounds like a small independent, maybe with a few sites. A, have the gym bought into it? B, do they kind of help facilitate it? And C, is it likely to increase the HYROX participation from that gym?
I mean, they've been very good in terms of, we had to kind of sort out how I could get extra passes for people and things like that, because I've got people coming down from all over the country who aren't members of the gym. So I'm doing everyone at 6 o'clock in the morning. So it means that it's quieter. It was very busy this morning. I don't know why. And yeah, I mean, there's a nice, from my point of view, there's a nice kind of buzz around the gym, and people now have realized what's going on every day, as you get to know the same faces and things like that. So yeah, I mean, I would have thought, it will act as a bit of a beacon, particularly when it gets out to local kind of press and things like that, because everything I'm doing and I tag them in everything I do is at Dream Fitness, so it should hopefully have that effect. But yeah, but they've been very good in kind of allowing me to do it, because it's I'm taking out big chunks of the of the gym kind of every day, and what's been quite nice, I've got different people that come in and kind of support or know that I'm doing it. So people have started, when they realized I've done the sled, they'll start dismantling the sled for me and disconnecting the ropes, because they know I'm done with it then. So that's quite nice. So.
Yeah, no, that's cool, and that I guess that can help build community without that being the actual goal. So yeah, no, that's cool. And then so okay, so we've got that kind of unpacked, and we understand how that's working. In terms of like people that are coming, you say they're coming from sort of all over the place to do it with you. Is the aim to get as many people as possible, or is that just like kind of a side thing to the challenge?
Yeah, I mean, my thought was from day one to do every single one as a doubles. That was what I set out to. I've done 2 solos so far, just because I prefer the doubles. I prefer running with someone, working alongside someone. You got someone to kind of, bounce off and off of, which I enjoy. And yeah, I mean, obviously that I was all my kind of local gang that I knew. I was pushing them initially to get the first few days and first few weeks kind of filled up. And then there's another local gym, which a lot of them are members of this gym as well. And they kind of got on board. So it's mostly kind of local people in January. But yeah, I've had people just kind of message me, who've been following from on the Instagram and things like that, and said, can I come along and do one? So yeah, I've got various people coming down the country, a few kind of quite well known. I've got some world record holders, some world champions in there as well, which that I've only given them one rule: don't break me.
No, but that's really cool. Can you name drop or not?
Yeah, I mean, again, different kind of levels of knowing people in the community. These are some of the ones that I do. There's a woman called Sasha, who literally she trains at our gym. Another one, I can't pronounce her surname, but she's got various records in mixed and women's. I think she's in the 45 to 49 category. And I've got the burpee coach, who's just along the coast in Portsmouth. He's coming along for one in April. I've got Robert Woods, or Woodsy. He's coming down next month, so he's coming down to do one with me. And I'm trying to. He's kind of agreed, and he's going kind of traveling. I've just got to pin him down, trying to get Travis Owls down as well.
Travis, cool. Let him do all the burpees.
No, absolutely. So yes, it's trying to get some of those down. And again, there's these are people that I've followed, and they've kind of inspired me when I was training for HYROX. And they're all just amazing athletes, and just kind of getting them down is going to be quite cool. But I'm hoping to also get them to help me, spread the word, because at the end of the day, this is for charity. And I've set myself if 100 HYROXes wasn't a challenge, raising £10,000 is the other part of the challenge. So helping getting some of those names down again to join me will hopefully kind of give that a boost, and so that we can really make a difference with the charity as well.
Yeah, no, and that is a major part. That is, that's the outcome, and just let everyone know, let everyone understand why that charity and who the charity are.
Yeah, they're called Chestnut Tree House. They're a local charity to me, and I've done some stuff almost in a previous life, some little fundraising things for them, and they're great. They basically do hospice care for an end of life care for children and terminally ill children, and so what they're doing is just kind of fantastic, and it just seemed a good fit, not only of them being kind of local, but it struck me, and I put this in a post recently, that I got to 47 and was able to make a change. The kids that they help won't ever get that opportunity, and so it's just kind of just doing something to give them that joy, those moments of joy, and just make as much happiness as they can in their unfortunately short lives.
Yeah, that brings it home, and that kind of sobers the excitement around all of the fun part of it. And, you know, anyone who's got kids, you know, will relate to that. Anyone who's been through losing a child will due to illness will relate to that, or, you know, any circumstances that are similar. So, you know, that really sobers it up and makes it. Does it make it worth it? Do you remember that in the dark moments, or have there been any dark moments yet?
Again, I mentioned being called annoyingly optimistic, and this kind of my outlook is that it's just, you know, I don't tend to go, it'd be dark. It's just another challenge to overcome. And it's like, cool, how am I going to overcome this? I mean, just when I came off the 6th run yesterday, which was number 14, tweaked my Achilles. And I thought, oh, that's not going to be much fun. So, you know, rested it, you know, did everything that I could kind of yesterday. Got up this morning. First thing, got up this morning, felt absolutely fine. Then it kind of crept in a little bit, did extra warm up, strapped it up, took the runs easy, and it was fine. I knew it was there, but it's kind of calmed down, feels good today. So, you know, but it was like, that was like, okay, what am I going to do if this gets worse, you know? And in the lead up, in trying to build up my running volume after Birmingham, before London, I did quite a bit of running in November, and I just did too much too soon. Get picked up a kind of a little niggle, didn't stop me, but it just kind of slowed me down a bit. And it's like, oh, is this going to be gone before January? You know, so it was just, you know, every one of those is a challenge. But for me, although I'm doing the same thing at the same time every day, because every partner is different and every day is different. You know, when I did the second solo this week, it felt a lot harder than when I did the first one. I got a quicker time, but it would have been great if I'd had a partner that day just to kind of keep me going. And I just kind of got inside my own head, you know. So yeah, there's not been any kind of, you know, dark days yet. I keep saying to people, I'm waiting to see whether kind of a toning and a fitness curve at some point just goes to a fatigue curve, you know, and that they then start getting more difficult, you know, towards the end, because I can't imagine I'm just going to keep going and keep peaking, you know. But each one's a challenge, and that will be something that drives it. And it was, you know, when I was sat there this morning, wondering how this run was going to be, it's like, I can't stop at 15. I'm doing 100. You know, I've got 85 more of these to go, and it's not, you know, it's not for me doing this. It is for, you know, to raise the money, and so that's where that nice extra pressure comes in, and that nice extra, you know, kind of driver to know that, yeah, this is about something more than just me.
Yeah, no, and that's always, I think, in any sort of challenge that we all take on, regardless of how big or small it is, when it's not about you and there's a bigger purpose, it definitely feels different as well. I think from personal experience, certainly for me, there's always an added bonus or an added touch to the whole event if I'm doing it for a reason that is more important and a lot bigger than my own self-satisfaction of completing whatever it is. So yeah, I hear that, and that's, you know, I think people need to know this. They see this on Instagram, they see it, and it's good to understand that the kind of mechanisms and the thought processes of yourself behind it, for sure. So you mentioned earlier on 3rd of January, kind of new year. It kind of fits well and it makes sense. Did you look at the calendar and go, okay, I'm not going away, or there's nothing major coming up, it fits in there, or is it just the January thing kind of dictated?
Well, because I had London on the 1st of December, so it was kind of like I didn't want to do anything, you know, between the two or start between the two. And then I thought Christmas is getting away. And as a side job, I spend 4 days a year dressed up as Father Christmas, driving around 2 counties, giving presents to people. But that's a whole nother conversation. So January kind of felt like the natural kind of thing. And because I had the 100 in my head, and I thought, well, I could start on the 1st of January. When does that take me up to? When's Easter? And looking at this. And then I realized, which was the slightly thinking about myself in a weird way, but I looked at it and went, if I started on the 3rd of January, the 100th one is actually on my 49th birthday. And that just felt like a nice way to end it. So, brilliant. You know, rather than worrying about doing it on the 1st and being up late for New Year's, it moved it a little day and gave me a nice end date as well. So
That's brilliant. That's really cool that it worked out in that way as well. Yeah, no, that's just the kind of thing that as soon as I saw it, I thought, well, how's that going to fit into a diary?
Yeah.
But because you need that arrangement. We've done sims here at my gym, and when you're setting up a sim, you kind of there even needs to be some agreement with the other members. There needs to be some, you have to do logistics. So you're not
Yeah.
going to be able to just turn up to a random gym in a random town and do a HYROX sim. That's not going to happen.
No.
So, that kind of was a burning question for me. Obviously with Birmingham, and then obviously you went again in HYROX XL down in London on the 1st of December. The kind of preparation and the training for it, was it a case of you just kept going through the specific training program, or did you specifically add other aspects into it to try and count the endurance side of this in terms of the longevity?
I had a 100-day plan that Ben Snell, my personal trainer, had put together for us all doing it, and so that had led us up to Birmingham. So for London, I basically just repeated the last 4 weeks again. I just did that, but I added in more running, because that was the bit that I felt that had kind of let me down at Birmingham. I wasn't quite where I wanted to be. So I was just doing kind of more volume in that, which again ended up, I was fine for Birmingham, but then December was a little bit kind of all over the place. But one of the things for me, because when I'd started back in July of 23, it was this sad in one way that some people would look at it, but basically when we went to Birmingham, which is, what was it, the 24th of October, something like that, that was the longest days I hadn't been in the gym since July 2023. Because when I started on this, I started the PT, I then joined the gym because I realized I wasn't going to do it otherwise. And I was training 6 days a week from July 23 all the way through, even going away for a couple of days, got a hotel with the gym so that we could carry on. So actually Birmingham was the longest I hadn't been in a gym for kind of 18 months. So part of going into this, and because I then did the HYROX on the Friday, parkrun Saturday, HYROX Sunday, it's kind of like, I know that's not the same as doing 100, but I was fresh, and the Sunday felt good. And training 6 days a week with at least 2 kind of heavy sessions in there, it was like, well, it's just like doing what I've done. This is how I was fooling myself. It's just like doing what I've been doing so far. It's just I don't have the rest day. So I kind of, I approached it very much like that. And so a lot of my training building up to October had been about getting stronger, building the routine, making sure I had all the good habits of sleep, nutrition, and supplements and things like that. So it was just a case then of just carrying that on. And then, before I knew it, Christmas was done, and the first one was here. And it's like, okay, we're doing this then.
Yeah, no. And I appreciate what you're saying, and how Birmingham kind of worked it in, like you said, the pre-training for it. You were gathering the idea that you could do this, and a lot of people that do gym classes and sessions for the first time will experience DOMS, so delayed onset of muscle soreness. But were you feeling confident sort of after the Birmingham process, for example, and then the training that you put in, that going through this 100 days of HYROX, that the DOMS wouldn't be a massive issue?
Yeah, I mean, I was quite lucky. I mean, the first few months, I had every conversation going when I started the training about DOMS, magnesium spray and everything, because they were kind of brutal, but they settled down, and got into a good routine. The rest days at times were more out of necessity, in terms of, I just feel a bit whacked out or something like that. But it was very rarely. It was more an exertion thing as opposed to anything particularly, DOMS or anything like that. So I whether it was a case of lucky, because I was on a high protein diet, I was on a calorie deficit to kind of get rid of the weight. I was, protein shakes in the morning and a whole range of powders that some that I'd researched, and a lot that Ben, my personal trainer, had kind of said. So I was feeling good, and injuries is something that I'd managed to avoid. I've only had injuries since I've actually started upping the run volume.
Yeah.
So the only injury, which I don't actually know the proper name of the machine, but I call it the rib breaker, because it was an early on leg press one where you're sat right on the floor, kind of at 45 degrees, whatever the proper name for that one is. And basically that was early on. And the fat that I was carrying extra got between my rib and my knee. And so I managed to bruise a rib. So that was kind of early on. So that machine's always been known as the rib breaker to me since then. But yeah, so I was pretty confident going in that I could, do this, and I didn't have any ill effects after kind of Birmingham, and from the training we were doing. So it's that, my biggest question mark was, well, what happens day 8, day 9, when I suddenly haven't got that rest day? And that was part of the reason why, because a few people questioned it, why when people book in to do them with me, every single one's at 6 a.m, because it's like the only way I can do this is by knowing they're all at the same time, and I've got 22 hours recovery until the next one. If I'm suddenly doing one in the morning, one in the evening, there are a few exceptions to that, but very, very few. And they're people that I've kind of gone, okay, so I know next week I have got a 5 a.m. one, which won't be a massive change. And then there's a couple of 9 and 10 a.m. ones, but they're closer to the end, because I said at that time, it shouldn't be too much of a problem, knowing that, the end is in sight.
Yeah, and sort of final day plans, is that going to be at a more kind of sociable time, so there can be a bit of an end to it and a party process?
One of my friends who did it last week, who hasn't trained for anything in years, and he came along and he put it raw dog to HYROX, which nearly killed him. But when I was chatting to him back end of last year, he said, that means you'll have run 497 miles. And I went, yeah, okay. I only know it in kilometers. He said, but you can't finish at 497 miles. You need to do another 3 miles. And I went, well, it finishes on a Saturday, so there's park run. He went, yeah, you've got to go and do park run. So the plan is to do HYROX on the last day, and then do a park run, just to get to the 500 miles. And I'm hoping to what I'm planning at the moment is either to do it as a 4-person relay team, or we might actually try an 8-person relay team. So me and obviously 8 other people, so that we get a group of us doing the last one, and then hopefully a group of us go down to park run. No idea what happens after that, but I definitely know the next day will be a rest day.
Yeah, no, that's cool. That and obviously it doesn't sound like that was pre-planned. It's just kind of how it's worked out. And that's really cool, because that will be a nice finish to it. Yeah, that's a long way. We can all do the maths. Anyone could have calculated that, but actually, your friend and pointing that out is a great point. What a huge number of miles that you will have covered, which is really brilliant. So, where we are right now on this recording, I imagine people will listen to this a few weeks later. But on the day of recording, how's it gone so far? What day are we on? And what's your kind of thought processes on the rest of the process?
We're on day 15 today, and it was a good one today. So I was worried about the Achilles, but that came through fine. So I'm gonna take it a little bit easier the next couple, just to make sure that kind of settles back down. I'm in tomorrow. I've got Nathan, who I did my first HYROX with, and he's already done one with me. He's doing Turin in a few weeks' time, and he's going for a 102 doubles. And he went, "Can we run at my speed tomorrow?" And I went, "Absolutely not." I said, "I've got another 80 odd of these to do." So no, feeling good. It's been interesting. There's a body tracks machine. Don't know how widespread they are at kind of gyms, which does your fat, your water, your muscle, your bone density, your BMI, and everything else. And I've been doing that every day, just to kind of see the internal changes and kind of what's going on and things like that, which has been quite interesting. But it's just been settling into not even a change in routine. The only thing that I've tried to do extra well since this, and I feel like I'm going backwards in age, is getting to bed just that little bit earlier, so I get a good 8 hours in. That's the only additional thing that I've kind of done, just to make sure I hit that recovery. But I think it's like with anything. There's been days when I've gone, yeah, God, the sled feels easy on the pull today, and then other ones it's like, God, this feels hard, and you've just got those little kind of ebbs and flows. But the work is there feels like a fine tuning at the moment in terms of my kind of fitness, because my row and my ski have both got consistently better. Burpees have gone very strange. I don't think anyone's a fan of burpees apart from the burpee coach and people like that. But it's one of those ones that now, where before it was one of the ones that peaked my heart rate, now typically when I'm doing the burpees, about 120, 125. I don't know why or how. So I'm quite enjoying that. So yes, it's interesting seeing how I'm kind of adapting, and each day is different. There's people that I know and I've trained with, people that I don't know. So there's that chat at the beginning in terms of how do you want to split the stations and what pace do you want to run at, and things like that. So it makes every one of them kind of fun, because whether it's a simulation or the full one, I think doing it and doing it under full conditions, we're not kind of skimping, it is an achievement, and I think everyone enjoys that. And yeah, it's in the gym there's lots more nods now every day from people of kind of respect, of kind of like, what day is it, 15, and
Yeah.
people shaking their head.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. I can imagine that. And you talk about sort of like the row and the burpees, and you can already feel sort of changes, and that word benefit of training that we all are really interested in, or people like myself and you are interested in. Are you quite data driven as a person?
I guess I am. I was why I ummed and ahed there, I don't know. I mean, I'm the only person from our group that, as far as I'm aware, that had a spreadsheet of all our sim times in with the breakdowns of the station. I just thought everyone would do that, so you can know where you're improving, and I do it for every run. So the one we did just today, Charlie, who did it with me, she managed to clock all the PBs for the mixed doubles, from the ones that we've done so far, so on all the stations. So I'm kind of looking at that, because I know that I can have someone amazingly quick on the stations with me, but I've got to do my part as well. And so it just kind of seeing where how I kind of feature into that. So I like the data, and obviously having lost the weight, and when I first started in that July, my body fat percentage was, I think, 31. My visceral fat was 15. And I'd never heard the word visceral fat before then, but seeing the changes, feeling better, and knowing the good things that were going on inside, it was nice to be able to know that there was stuff going on that you couldn't necessarily see, but you were better for it. So
yeah, and they're obviously the ones that, like, as a health point of view, people sort of overlook, right? So the fact that you could see that was great. The reason I asked that question is because people like myself and various coaches I know, and certainly a lot of the elite coaches, the guys that coach the Elite 15, are all data driven in this world of HYROX. And it reminds me, you said something earlier, and it reminded me, you used the phrase, you didn't know whether it'd plateau out or what will happen. And it reminds me of the first sort of the COVID lockdown in 2020. I was part of a trio that did it's called the Ultra Running Accumulator, where you run the number of miles of the date. So you do 1-on-1 all the way to 30. We did it all the way to 30. We did it in June. We weren't going to do it in a 31-day month. And one of the guys was so data driven, he plotted it, because he wanted to find the point where we no longer fatigued anymore, and if there was a point where we started to see a fitness gain from the previous. And he actually found out on day 21 we all had this data that would suggest there was a plateau, and B, that we had benefited from the running we'd done up until that point. What would be really interesting is, on your journey, like, you'll have all the data of sort of heart rates, like you've already said about the burpees there. because of that familiarization of your body adapting and changing, when you start plotting stuff and having fun on a graph, what actual trends and things are happening for you that make you go, do you know what? Maybe that just has changed as a real indicator of fitness, or it could be some really interesting data. I don't suppose it would have too many practical sort of applications, but it would still be interesting to understand that, because fatigue must be a part of this, but
Oh yeah,
maybe only to a certain point.
and that's what I'm, kind of, that's what part of why I'm tracking it, because without that, I want to be able to spot that and say, okay, is there anything I can do? Is this just a natural kind of occurrence? And of course, in the first week, all my apps and stuff like that were kind of going, take a break, slow down, stop, and of course, once I got past the first week, it was kind of like, okay, right, we're doing this now then. And then they kind of went, yeah, no, okay, you're doing all right. So yeah, they've kind of changed. And yeah, I mean, just obviously there's always a lot of data behind them, but looking at things like, Strava and, because that's got the fitness and things like that. And that's because someone literally asked me about that after about the first week. So I've kept an eye on that one. And it's gone from, and it's really depressing. So when I put the figure out there, I went, that's really cool. It's gone up by 31% at the time. And I went, yeah, but that means it was 30% lower. I thought I was quite fit, because it went from something like 68 or something like that. And I know today's when I put it in, it's now hit 100. So it's the fitness level according to that has gone up, and I am seeing differences in my heart rate across the stations. But there's also that, as I said, that day-to-day, week-by-week variance, which makes it fun, and that's why you kind of want the numbers, because different days you just feel up for it more. You just and there isn't necessarily any one thing that does it, but the runs feel a bit easier, or some of the stations feel easier. So yeah, I'm interested to see how it goes. That whether I just peak after 2 or 3 weeks, and then all I'm doing then is just waiting for fatigue to pull me down the other end, so
Yeah, no, very interesting. Very, very interesting. Well, I think it's an amazing challenge. It's very inspiring, and having now had 56 minutes or so to chew it over with you, there's some real insight there. And yeah, I think from us, it's like we'll wish you all the luck, and hope that it continues to go well. We'll have a little discussion when we get off. We'll have a quick chat about the possibility of some other stuff, but we'll leave it there for now. But I normally finish with this question: what would be your top 3 tips? And I normally frame it in a certain way that's a bit specific. So you are Mr. HYROX in terms of doing your first HYROX and doing it after perhaps not being very active. So to someone who's sitting there on the couch, hasn't done very much with their adult life in terms of sport and fitness, what would your top 3 tips be to get someone off the couch to do a HYROX?
This is probably a bit glib, but my immediate one I'd like to say is consistency, because that is, it is that, I didn't achieve anything in one day, 1 week, 1 month, even 6 months, that it took before things started happening. But if you learn to enjoy it and get into it, and you do the right things and you're consistent at the right things, the benefits are just the bonus, because actually the act of doing it becomes the enjoyable bit, and everything else is a bonus. So that would be kind of, if I wasn't saying that, consistency would still be the first one. Understanding nutrition for me was a huge thing. There's that line that gets thrown about, is you can't outwork a bad diet, and that was the big thing. Understanding that, and not only just from a calories in, calories out, but also the quality of what you put in and what you should be putting in and things like that. So, and I think overlooked is, it's the boring one. I would either say sleep or community, because I think it's sleep is one of those things. If you can get that right, and again, that kind of comes back to the consistency. But I think the community, the expert, finding something that you enjoy in there, because that makes everything else easier. It makes the consistency easier. It gives you a reason to be eating well and things like that. So if you can get that in there as well, then I think that's you're sorted from there.
Yeah, no, brilliant. Great tips as well. So, thanks very much, Paul. That was absolutely brilliant. Thanks for coming on the show. If anyone wants to follow it, where do they look?
So on Instagram, which is Hooked on HYROX, so that's where you can find it there. And if you want, when you listen to this, if you want to come and join me for one of my 100, then send me a message and I can send you a link and you can see if there's any slots left. So I know we're booked, well, not fully booked. January's fully booked. February and March are filling up, as is April. So that's the best place to find me.
Fantastic. And so I'll say thank you, and I'll just say to everyone who's listened or watched, get on Paul's journey and have a little look on Instagram. It's certainly very, very insightful and dare I say already entertaining as well. So you can follow that journey. But thanks very much to everyone who has listened or watched. If you have found this entertaining or helpful in any way, and you think that someone that might like it, do forward it on to them. Please leave a comment in the comments on whichever platform it is you are listening or watching, because it would be great for myself and for Paul to potentially look at those and see what's said. And then from me today, once again, thanks to everyone who listened, and we look forward to speaking more on the rocks.